So, Nick, I feel like we have been discussing this all season long, and we keep saying, oh, most people, they'll eventually get their footing. They'll eventually figure this out. There's enough talent on this team. They'll put it all together. But are we running out of time? Do you expect them to rebound from this tough stretch before the playoffs start?
No, and I take issue with one thing you said before the Brad Stevens sound, which is you said many people expected them in the Eastern Conference Finals. No, no, no. The Boston Celtics were the preeminent favorite to make the NBA Finals. I was considered a critic because I thought they might not make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. That was considered, oh, you must just be hating for no reason. They had the second highest Vegas over-under as far as projected wins. They won 53 games 2 years ago with Isaiah Thomas as their best player. They won 55 games last year, even though Kyrie missed the last month of the season. This was a team that had Gordon Hayward coming back, a healthy Kyrie, Tatum in year 2, Brown in year 3. They didn't lose anyone of substance in free agency. This team was supposed to contend with Golden State. They were supposed to be having the year Milwaukee's having. They're not even having the year the Clippers are having. That's who they are right now, and we've got 8 games left. So, no, they're not going to change. No, they're not going to be any different. And this is a squandered season for Boston. If this season went one way, you know how it would have ended? With Kyrie keeping his promise, signing a contract extension, a trip to the finals, probably a loss to Golden State, and a trade for Anthony Davis this summer.
Yeah, I don't know if all those things are true, but the thing about the expectations, that's the reason why right now they have so many people doubting, because of expectations. But were those expectations realistic? Because we just thought with Brad Stevens, they have a huge coaching advantage. Got a new coach in Toronto, new coach in Milwaukee, and we felt like Boston with the 2 additional All-Stars, they were more talented. So they got a coaching advantage, they got talent. That's why people said, oh, they would be there. But once you start the season, they don't have no coaching advantage over Nurse. They don't have no coaching advantage over Coach Bud in Milwaukee. Like Brad Stevens had. You talking about the players. Brad Stevens hadn't had a good year. He hadn't shown elite coaching with the most talented roster he's ever had in professional basketball or in college basketball. So you can spread the blame around. But once the season started, no, they weren't the favorite. Milwaukee has been substantially better, and people should doubt. It's hard to think because last year, people forget, they struggled going into the playoffs. But we had 2 excuses. They're young and they're injured. They caught fire in the playoffs, the younger players, and the overall chemistry. The reason why now is Toronto. We didn't know what they would do with Kawhi. They have tremendous chemistry. They're well coached, and they're talented. Their bench is really strong. Milwaukee, they've transformed. It's how they're going to play basketball. Man, they shoot the 3. They dominate the paint. They play great defense. They're almost unbeatable at home. So, no, they're not the favorite. I don't expect the Celtics to be able to beat these teams that consistently have put it together. And the questions they had coming into the season, Toronto, Milwaukee, and even Philadelphia, most of those questions have been answered from a positive standpoint compared to the Celtics.
But here's the other reason why for Boston, this even with Toronto and Boston, or Toronto and Milwaukee exceeding expectations, it'd be one thing if it's like, man, Milwaukee's going to win 60 games, Toronto's going to win 57. So Boston's going to win 55 games again, have a really good year. There were just 2 teams that hit on everything. Toronto made a midseason trade that helped them. Milwaukee, they have the number 1 defense in basketball, the number 1 overall net rating in basketball, top 3 offense. Like, okay, so those are 2 great teams. Boston's really, really good, just not there. That's not where they are. Right now, they have a worse record than every team that's going to make the playoffs in the West. There are 12 teams in the NBA with the same or better record than Boston. That's a mediocre season, and it's a bad season given where the expectations are.
So if you look at this team, would you point more towards team chemistry or team talent as the reason why this season has gone awry?
Well, the reason why we haven't seen the team talent is because they don't have team chemistry. They are not willing to sacrifice each other's game because that's what you have to do in team sports. You can't have career years for your top guys. Like, guys have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice playing defense. You have to be able to rebound. But you have to be totally consumed with what the team is doing compared to, man, am I going to stay here? Man, I need to make sure I get me a max deal on this other contract. Man, I should be a starter. Terry Rozier, All these things, they get in the way, and they pollute the water from a team being able to operate in sync. So the lack of chemistry has been the biggest issue this year. The second biggest issue, Gordon Hayward. Those minutes that he has gotten, it's affected the other players because he has not been consistently better than them, and they've given him minutes out of respect, out of previous relationship with Brad, like for some reason. But that's one of the huge problems that they have there.
Well, and the other element for Boston that is so concerning, and a reason why any faith or optimism is just blind faith or blind optimism, is they had a chance at a reset when everybody does at the All-Star break. All right, guys, the first two-thirds of the season didn't go the way we had hoped, but we still can be the third seed in the East. If Toronto falters, we maybe could get up to number 2. We know what our rotation is. Gordon's as healthy as he's been since he first got here. And since the All-Star break, they're 6-10. They're 1-8 against playoff teams since the All-Star break.
They're behind the Pacers. The Pacers haven't had Oladipo.
They have 100%. Like, we just gave Boston the 4 seed at least when Oladipo went down. And the reason that I said the story is a squandered opportunity is maybe they would or wouldn't have been able to trade for Anthony Davis. But when Kyrie said, I'm going to stay in Boston in October, I do believe, and I believed at the time, that was his intention. Now, I thought things could change what his intention was. But the way to keep him there was to have a successful season. The way to keep him there was to reach expectations, have Kyrie be the leader of a really good team. Instead, it's gone the other way. And so now you would almost look at it and say, wait, what is the reason for Kyrie to stay? It's not as if you can make the argument, well, you're leaving a championship team. You really want to leave there to go to the Knicks when the Boston's not a championship team, and Milwaukee's not going anywhere. We don't know what's going to happen with Toronto and Kawhi. Philly, I would imagine, is only going to get better depending on if they can keep their free agents. Like, Boston went into this year as the favorite out east. They went into last year as the second favorite behind Cleveland. They will not go into next year as the first or second out east. That's jarring for a team that's been building towards this for a half-decade.
This is the irony to it was, I mean, how good is a team if Kyrie's your best player? Because he's the best player now, just like he was in Cleveland before LeBron came back. They didn't win anything. Now, Kyrie, though, the reason why you can't put too much into that is because he's having a great year. He's having career-type years, but the other guys around him are not. I always thought it was on the board based on what people were saying that he was not going to stay in Boston and that he was going to try to be in New York City. That's always been part of one of his goals. He didn't request to go to the Celtics, so that's kind of the irony to it. Kyrie is playing good basketball, but they're not. It doesn't translate into wins.
It's the most bizarre part of the season is that they are 10-2 when he does not play, 33-29 when he does, and much like those early years in Cleveland, his individual numbers are outstanding, and this is the best statistical year of his career, and it's not translating to wins.
All right. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.